and welcome to another episode of Healing with Nama. I'm Casey, aka Nama, and today I want to talk about how to deal with sadness during the holidays. So right now it's the holiday season, the season of cheer and joy and giving, and it's also a season where many people experience depression, sadness, anxiety, and all different types of things. So I just wanted to touch on that today. Before I get started, don't forget to like the podcast, subscribe, follow, share the podcast. If you're listening on a podcast where you can rate and review, please do that so that we can start spreading the word and really get this thing going. Well, continue to keep it going. And then also don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Healing with Nama, and you can find my main page on that page. And yeah, just keep spreading the word about the podcast. So thank you to everybody who's been listening and who continues to listen. I really appreciate it. I'm having a lot of fun making these episodes, and so I really am keeping that in the forefront of my mind, is that I am doing it because I like it and I love it. And I'm having fun with it. So I want to keep doing it. So I appreciate everybody supporting me. And let's jump into the topic for today. So sadness and, depression come to the holiday season, especially if people are not able to be with their families or family dynamics have changed. Maybe financially you're not able to do what you would like to do, and so it brings on like stress or guilt, sadness. And some people, there's a term for it called SAD, so it's seasonal affective depression. So some people just around this time of year just get depressed, and it's just a time of year, and it's not necessarily one thing that will trigger it. It's just this time of year is when people start experiencing that seasonal depression. So it's really good to be mindful of that, and if your mood changes and the patterns and things like that, so that you can try and get ahead of it and excuse me, and do plan for things that you're going to do when and if it happens to you. So I was looking at WebMD, and WebMD said that some sources of holiday sadness include stress, fatigue, unrealistic expectations, over commercialization, financial stress, and the inability to be with friends. And that also goes along with grief. If you've lost somebody during the year, or if you've lost somebody close to this time of year, it can be really difficult to feel joyful and cheerful when you are missing somebody and when you are grieving someone. So those are all things that can affect your mood, and to the point where you start experiencing depression during this time of year. And I also wanted to just kind of talk about some of the symptoms that you can look out for if you think you might be experiencing holiday depression, or the holiday blues as they call it. Some can include, and this is very similar to just regular depression, but it happens solely at this time of the year. Changes in your weight or appetite, changes in your sleep patterns, being depressed or irritable, which may be unusual for you, having a difficult time concentrating, feeling more tired than usual, so fatigue, and loss of pleasure in doing things that you used to enjoy. So maybe even having some guilt because you feel like you should be enjoying this time of year, and you should be happy, and you should be cheerful and joyful, and you just don't feel that way. And so that might make you feel a little guilty, or even more sad. So those are things that you can think about if you're thinking maybe this is something that you're experiencing too. I know for me, I never realized that it was something that I experienced, having that seasonal depression. And it does, come for me around this time of year. It's not as intense as it used to be, but I do notice, I'm just a little bit more sad, and it takes a little bit more for me to cheer myself up sometimes. The first time that I noticed it was when I was living abroad in England, because I was an exchange student. So that was between the months of September and January. So that's the whole holiday season. I didn't have my family. I wasn't, I couldn't come home for Christmas because I was in England. And it was a really sad time. It felt really sad. I felt isolated. I didn't have a lot of friends in England. So it wasn't like, I could go out and, do something to distract myself. I was pretty much alone, especially for Thanksgiving, because in England they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. So, you're in this place where Thanksgiving is not a thing. It doesn't exist. But to you, it's a tradition, quote unquote. For me, it's not even about the Thanksgiving, the whole story of it, because that's a whole nother thing. But it's about spending time with my family and eating good food and just making memories together. That's what I missed about it. So to not be able to celebrate with my family and to be all alone was really tough for me. It was depressing. It was sad. And I felt like, I wanted to make myself feel better in some way. So what I did was I went out to the grocery store and I got a bunch of stuff so that I could make my own Thanksgiving dinner. Of course, it didn't look like how it would look if I was at home, but I made it work, and it was like my own little makeshift Thanksgiving. And I felt proud of myself for doing it, following through. When I was cooking, I was playing music, so that, increased my mood and just made me feel a little bit better. And it was something to kind of get me out of my head and not be so sad about not being able to be with my family, and made my own little, memory with myself. So that was one thing that I did that helped me to just feel better, at least on that day. Of course, being away from your family and not being able to be around the people that you love during this time where everybody's gathering together can be really triggering. So for me, just having at least that one day where I wasn't thinking about how sad I was made it a little bit better. And so some things that I read on WebMD that you can do to help get yourself through this time would be to set realistic expectations. So for me, when I hear this makes me think more along the lines of finances. So if you are stressing about financially not being able to afford the gifts for this person and that person, being realistic about what you can do and just being honest. And hopefully you have, the type of family and friends that will be understanding that, this is the situation that you're in. And this is what's realistic for you, to not be stressed about it. And that might help you kind of take some of the pressure off of yourself, so that you can feel like you're still giving gifts to people, but you're not overdoing it to where, you're going to be stressed about, I'm not going to have money left over after the holidays, or I don't have enough to do what I want to do. Just kind of thinking of ways that you can still realistically do what you want to do. Another thing that they said was prioritize important things. So not making everything that you have to do or you feel you need to do during this season important. Like, some things are more important than others. So prioritizing important things might be helpful for you to kind of visually, if you write it down, visually see the things that you need to do. And I know for me, when I do that, sometimes I'm writing stuff down. I'm like, I don't even have as much to do as I thought I did. Like, some of this stuff isn't even as important as I made it seem in my mind. And writing it down just makes me look at it and say, okay, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So that's another thing to think about. Focus on giving back to those less fortunate. And I don't really like to use the cliche of, oh, somebody else has it worse and you shouldn't feel so bad, because that's kind of negating how you feel, and that's kind of counterproductive, because you still feel how you feel. It doesn't matter that, this person has it worse or whatever. You still feel how you feel, and that's okay. But sometimes, I shouldn't say but, and sometimes focusing on someone else's quote unquote problems helps you to kind of distract yourself from what you are going through or how you're feeling. And it also makes you feel better to brighten up somebody else's day, make somebody else feel good. And in turn, you start to feel good because you're making somebody else feel better about this time of year who may not have family at all. It may not be that they can't get to their family. Maybe they just don't have family. So that's a really big thing that you can do, is find a way to give back to other people, volunteer. I know with COVID, it's a little bit different. But I don't know. One thing that I do like to do during this season is like the thing where you pay for somebody else's Starbucks and then somebody else behind you does the same thing, you know, that like random act of kindness. That's what I'm trying to say. Random acts of kindness. That's the thing that I'm talking about. So just doing something to randomly make somebody else happy. And it doesn't always have to cost money, you know. It could just be complimenting somebody who's walking by, or letting somebody go in front of you at the grocery store. You never know what you do that could really bring joy to somebody else. You don't know what anybody else is going through. And so you taking a moment to just be kind could be the thing that's, you know, makes them happy and sparks happiness for a moment in their day. So just try it out and see how that feels for you. Another thing would be to stay present. So stay in the present moment. This is where we're talking about anxiety and depression. So if you're thinking too far ahead in the future, you're going to start getting anxious. If you're thinking too far back into the past, you're going to get depressed. So thinking about staying in the moment, really processing what's happening for you, where you are, what you're doing. And if you are able to be with your family, being present with them and talking to them. Because like I said, this holiday depression doesn't have to be just because you're not with your family. You could still feel this way and be with your family, you know. It just could be that time of year where you have things going on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that you are feeling isolated because you're away. You could just be feeling isolated and be around people. There's so many ways that this can affect a person, that it's not just, you know, just because you're not with your family. So if you are with your family, try and be present. You know, if you're with your friends, try and be present, or whoever you're spending this time with. Try to be mindful, to stay in the moment and soak it in, what's happening for you. Really be present if somebody's talking to you, and just try not to let yourself wander too far back or ahead, because it's going to take you, you know, further down a path that you don't necessarily want to go down. And another thing that they said was be mindful of overconsumption. Now, this is the time of year where people spend a lot of money. And like I was saying about the over commercialization, everybody feels like this is the time to spend goo gobs of money and buy all this stuff. And that's the way that we kind of show our love to each other during this season, which is great. You know, there's nothing wrong with it, spending it. If you have it, circulating that money and having that energy exchange is amazing and makes people feel happy. But if it starts to not make you feel happy, and if it's a source of stress, then we have to be mindful of, are we over consuming, you know, all this stuff that we saw on TV or TikTok or this or that? Like, do we really need it? Or is it just, you know, you just wanted to buy it just because? So just being mindful of not buying stuff just for the sake of buying stuff. And really being purposeful with our spending, if that's what you want to do. If you want to spend, you know, if you want to buy all this stuff and whatever you spend your money, that's great. If you have it, go for it. But this is for people who may be feeling pressured to do that and don't necessarily have that desire within themselves. Just be mindful that it's not always necessary to overconsume during this holiday season or just in general. Another thing that you could do is to try something new. And this is like I was saying about, being in England, is instead of just sitting around and being sad because I couldn't be with my family for Thanksgiving, I went out, made myself go out, get some food, cook for myself, make it a fun experience, tried something new, and it made me happy for that moment, So trying something that you wouldn't normally do. This could be anything, as long as you're being safe, obviously. Trying something that you don't normally do, maybe that you've been wanting to try, or I don't know, there's so many different things that you could do. That this could be a good time for you to do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be on Thanksgiving or on Christmas. It could be those times in between where it's just kind of still the holiday season, but there's not an actual holiday. Go out and try something new. While stores are, still open and places are still open and not shut down for the holiday, go out and see what you can learn, what you can find, what you can experience. You can also reach out to someone or reach out to multiple people. Let people know how you're feeling. Let people know that you're feeling sad and anxious and depressed. You feel isolated because of X, Y, and Z. You just need somebody to talk to. You want, some company or whatever, just reach out to somebody. Let somebody know how you're feeling and don't suffer in silence, because that's one thing that's going to make your experience even harder. And I know that for some people, it's not as easy as just saying, okay, go reach out to somebody and tell somebody. It may not be that easy for everyone, but if you have the opportunity to be honest about your feelings and tell somebody that you're struggling, I would ask that you do that and just let somebody know. Be honest and be vulnerable. And the best case scenario is somebody is receptive to what you're saying and they want to help you and they want to understand, and that's something that you can gauge before you start expressing yourself to someone. Is this somebody that I can trust? Is this somebody that's going to make me feel better? Somebody that's going to understand what I'm saying, and, engage it from there, because sometimes expressing yourself to the wrong person makes things worse. So you have to kind of be mindful of who you share with. Like, you feel like you're supposed to be able to share with your family or this person or that person, but you have to be realistic about the people who are in your life and the way that they communicate, and just those types of things, because it can sometimes do more harm than good if you're expressing yourself to the wrong person. So just be mindful of who you express yourself to, but please let somebody know if you're struggling, especially in the case of if you are really sad and depressed and having suicidal thoughts or feelings. That is an emergency, and that is something where you need to reach out to someone right away and let somebody know that this is a serious thing that's happening. Call 911, call the suicide hotline. Those types of things are not things that you want to wait on, and that is something that people need to know about. You need to tell someone what's going on with you in that case. So just making sure that you're reaching out to people and letting them know how you're feeling, so that you can avoid it going to that extreme. And if you already are at that point, really letting somebody know that you need help. Okay, I really just can't stress that enough, because it's so important. And on the flip side, check on other people. So if you know that somebody is prone to having sadness and depression just regularly, or at this time of year, or they're going through something, or even if they're not, just reach out to people and let them know that you're there. Let them know that you care about them and that you're listening and you're understanding, because you don't know what people are going through. People can be suffering in silence, and obviously you wouldn't know because they're not telling you. So reach out to other people. Not just reaching out to tell them that you're struggling, but reach out to people just because you want to check on them and you want to make sure that they are okay, and you want to make sure that they know that you are a source of support. So reaching out can go both ways, and it's very important to just be mindful of how people are feeling, especially during this time of year. If somebody's grieving or anything like that, you just want to be extra mindful. You just want to be more caring and supportive and all that kind of stuff, so that people feel comfortable to come to you and tell you if they're struggling or things like that. So reaching out. Also, you can delegate. So if you're the person that always hosts Thanksgiving, always hosts Christmas or whatever, delegating different responsibilities to other people so that everything doesn't fall on your shoulders. Like maybe you make the main dish and other people are bringing the sides. Maybe you are hosting, but somebody else is gonna be whatever. Like it's gonna be at your house, but somebody else is gonna be the one in charge of making sure things run smoothly, or whatever the case may be, so that you don't get stressed out about having to do every single thing, because that's a lot. If you have a lot of people coming over to your house for Christmas or for Thanksgiving, that's a lot of pressure, so having people there to help you do certain things may take the pressure off of you if you're able to do that. And then the other thing is keeping track of your spending. So this goes with the overconsumption, being mindful of how much you're spending. So maybe you have a Christmas budget. Maybe you are just writing things down as you go. Or another thing that I've seen people do is like do Secret Santa, and then you just have to buy a gift for one person instead of everybody. And, that kind of goes along with, being mindful of your spending as well, because not everybody has money to circulate everywhere, so sometimes you do have to be mindful of your spending. So another way to do that is to just keep track of what you are circulating, what you are putting out, and what you're going to have coming in and what you have left over, so that at the end of the season you're not looking back going, whoa, where did all my money go? Like you have somewhat of an idea of what you may have left. So that's another way that you can be mindful of your spending and overconsumption. Because for me, I love to give gifts. So if I have extra cash coming in during this time of the year, and I love to buy gifts for people, and I'm just going to be buying gifts, and I'm going to see something that I think somebody likes, and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get that. And then next thing you know, I'm not paying attention to how much I've been spending, and it's lower than I thought it was going to be. So just being mindful of not buying everything that you see that you think the person will like, maybe just getting them one gift, and it might be helpful for you. And so those are just ways that you can deal with being sad or depressed during this holiday season. Trying to keep your spirits up. I know that it's a very challenging time of the year for a lot of people, especially if you are experiencing grief or are not able to be with your family. I know because of COVID, the last two Christmases, one Christmas and then this Christmas, are a little bit different for some people, and it can be really sad and hard. So doing some of the things that I talked about, and also being aware of if you are feeling depressed, maybe you didn't realize that's what was happening for you, but just being aware can really help you push through this time in a better mindset or headspace, and help you to find at least little pockets of happiness here and there, because it is an isolating time sometimes, and it can feel really sad. And sometimes you don't even know why you're sad. You're just feeling sad. And like I said, that can make you feel guilty. So just working through all those emotions, being mindful of how you feel, not forcing yourself to feel jolly and cheery because it's the Christmas season if you don't feel that way. Not letting yourself stay in that like Grinch mode where you're like, angry and bah humbug. Just kind of going with the flow, working through it and enjoying it as much as you can, because at the end of the day, life is short, and you don't want to spend time being unhappy or grouchy or sad if you don't have to be. Now, this isn't going to be a quick fix. It's not going to make the depression just magically go away because you're doing all these things, but it can help you to have, those happy moments and where everything is not so cloudy and gloomy and gray. And, can be a little bit more enjoyable. I feel like having one good day is better than having all bad days. So, trying your best to kind of do things that make you feel a little bit better will kind of help you along. And if you're suffering from, regular depression or anxiety, obviously doing things throughout the year that help you manage that. Maybe you're taking medicine or whatever you believe in, but just being mindful of how you feel and how your feelings might change, and doing something about it and not just letting it kind of snowball into something bigger. All right, so that is my episode about holiday sadness, the holiday blues, doing something to cheer yourself up. This is my favorite time of year, so I'm looking forward to just immersing myself in the feeling. I'm spending time with my family for the holidays and experiencing that holiday cheer. I hope that you all enjoy this episode. Make sure that you like and follow and subscribe. If you have any ideas or anything that you would like to hear a podcast episode about, I'd love to hear about it. You can always DM me on Instagram and let me know if you have some ideas, because I definitely want to hear about it. And I hope that you all have a good week, and I will see you on the next episode of Healing with Nama.